Everybody, this is Dream. Today we're going to get a small 3-game slate for basketball. Starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. So for this, we have a pretty sizable injury report for the amount of teams that are playing. For the games here, though, I'm going to go ahead and take my picks here. I've got Sacramento over Memphis. I have Milwaukee over Washington, and I have Boston over Denver. So those are my picks for today. For the injury report, let's get into that. And the Nuggets, Murray is questionable. Gordon is probable, Brown Jr. is probable, and Jeff Green is out. For the Wizards, Beal is questionable. For the Bucks, Hill is questionable, and Holiday and Middleton are both out. For the Kings, Monk is questionable. And for the Grizzlies, Bane is questionable, Aldama is questionable, and Jackson Jr. is probable. So we have a decent injury report for a small slate. With that said, let's get into the players I do like. Now, I do want to talk about Memphis for a minute. They don't typically do that well on back-to-backs, but this is a plus matchup for them, and I do like Ja Morant today. He's been pretty consistent lately. He's had a couple off games, but for the most part, he's been consistent. However, back-to-backs tend to be a little bit tougher for Memphis in general. They haven't played all that great on these back-to-back situations this season, and so do keep that in mind. But overall, I do think he's still, it's just a plus matchup and probably the fastest paced game of this particular slate. So I think him and De'Aaron Fox both are very good options on this particular slate. I'm probably going to try to find a way to work both those guys in my lineup. Fox has been extremely good. He's had a couple off games, but for the most part, he's been good all season long. And he's playing well, and his price is pretty much where we want it to be for himself. So then we're going to look at Jaylen Brown here for the Celtics. Now, it seems like him and Tatum keep rotating who has the biggest game. And so if that continues here, Jaylen Brown's in a great spot. He's been playing really well, and his price point has actually come down some, which is nice. And he's definitely viable on the slate. Then we'll look at Giannis here for Milwaukee. Now, Drew Holiday and Middleton are both out. And with those guys out the last couple of games, he's been absolutely just dominating. He's at 84 and 81 fantasy points the last 2 games. He had a 73-point game a couple games ago, and he's been over 50 in most games lately. He's had a couple exceptions, but he's playing really good, and so I definitely like him in this matchup. Then we'll look at Bobby Portis, who's been playing really well with the injuries to the Bucks. He's been getting more minutes, and as a result, he's paying off fantasy-wise really well. His price has actually come down, too, from what it was, and so because he's had some inconsistencies with minutes and stuff. But right now, his minutes should be really good, and so I think he's a viable option on the slate. Then we'll look at Rui Hachimura for Washington. With Beal out, he should get a couple more minutes. He's been playing around 25 to 30 minutes most days in the last 5 or 6 games, and while he does have a low floor, he does have a pretty high ceiling as well. Then we'll look at centers and Steven Adams for here on DraftKings. He seems pretty reasonably priced. He's had some really big games lately. He typically gets stopped on the minute situation, but with some of the guys out from Memphis recently, he's been playing some extra minutes, and his price has actually come down some, so he's in a good price range for this game. I do like him here quite a bit, especially if there's some guys out. Then we'll look at the Joker for Denver. He has been playing extremely good lately. He's had double-double and triple-doubles literally almost every other game, and I like to see that continue here. He's had some massive monster games. He has no games under 50 fantasy points since the beginning of December, so I think he's a great option here. Even though it's a tough matchup and a slower paced game, he's pretty much price resistant at this point. So then we're going to look at FanDuel here, and we're going to start off with Ja Morant. He's been playing extremely well for Memphis, and I do like him in this matchup. He's not as ideal as he is on DraftKings, but he's still decent here, and he's got upside in this plus matchup, which should be the fastest paced game on the slate. Same goes for De'Aaron Fox, and his price point's actually pretty good here on FanDuel. He's had some 50-point games lately, and so I think he'll have a good opportunity for one here. I typically like to use guys against Memphis when Memphis is on a back-to-back as well. Then we're going to look at Jaylen Brown here for Boston. He looks like he's in a good spot. He's been kind of every other game having big games, and so if that continues, this is the situation he'll do it in. And he's got a nice matchup here against Denver, which, while won't be the super high-scoring game, he should be good to go here. Then we'll look at Giannis here. He's been absolutely dominating the last 2 games. He's had over 75 fantasy points in the last 2, and he's had 3 of the last 5 over 70. I look for that to for him to have an opportunity to have a big, massive one here again against Washington, who doesn't really have anybody that can stop him, and should be a higher scoring game. Then we'll look at Bobby Portis, who's also been playing well with the guys out, with Middleton and Drew Holiday out. He's getting a little bit more minutes, and with that, that's definitely a bonus for him. His price point is a little bit higher here than I would like, but overall, he's been playing really well. And on a small slate like this, we just have to go with where we can get points. Then we'll look at Domantas Sabonis here for the Kings. He's been pretty consistent lately. He did sit out a game a couple games ago, but overall he's still getting a full complement of minutes, and he's just been getting double-doubles literally every game, and I expect that to continue here. And if he can get a triple-double, which he's been getting a couple of those lately, he should be able to pay off here nicely. Then we're going to look at the Joker for Denver here against Boston. It is a little bit of a tough matchup, and his price has come up quite a bit, but he is viable on the slate. Not as ideal here on FanDuel as he is on DraftKings, but he still has 80 fantasy point upside. He's had some absolutely massive games lately, and this is the kind of situation where I tend to see him do something like that again. So, with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.